Infamous Mexican drug lord Joaquin El Chapo Guzman may soon be on his way to the United States. He was arrested Friday. Mexican officials have begun working on the extradition process.
Officials say a meeting between Guzman and actor Sean Penn helped lead them to Guzman's and led to his recapture. So we are joined now by former federal prosecutor Doug Burns to talk about this. I know, Doug, I think when people started hearing about the Sean Penn connection, that he interviewed this wanted man, you think, There's got to be a law against that.
No,
is there?
It's just crazy. I mean, first of all, the discussion is law, ethics, and then journalistic ethics.
Right.
You know, three different categories. But ironically and interestingly enough, if you look at the statute, it says whoever harbors or conceals somebody who has escaped from prison. And from everything I studied, just setting up a journalistic interview really doesn't meet that with nothing more. That's not to say it was a good idea or that anybody would have logically advised him to do that. And on that score, it's interesting, he must have spoken to legal counsel before that and gotten the opinion that if he didn't give him money, didn't assist him in continuing to be a fugitive, then he would be okay, which sets up, you know, sort of an advice of counsel defense. I checked with lawyers. But again, just a crazy thing to do, but at the same time doesn't violate federal law, in my opinion.
Let's talk about the extradition process. How difficult will it be to extradite him back to the U.S.?
Yeah, it's interesting. People sometimes get confused because they say, you know, they think it's automatic. The point is, I've been counsel for the U.S. government in extraditions a number of times when I was in the Department of Justice. The point is, if your extradition is being sought from Mexico to the United States, you have a number of rights. You're entitled to an extradition hearing in Mexico. And there's a number of issues, many of which aren't all that difficult, which is, are you the Joe Jones that's named in the indictment? Well, with somebody this notorious, that's not really an issue. Next, are the crimes that you're being extradited for listed in the treaty? That's also not all that complicated here, because these are massively serious crimes. But those are the type of issues. But the point is, it can take a long time. And as people have noted, you have the right to appeal if your extradition is ordered, so it can take some time. Interestingly, the Mexican government declined to extradite him previously. I think it was in 2014, because another thing people sometimes don't realize is that governments have the automatic right to decline extradition of their own citizens, regardless of any legal principles. But again, I'm not a political expert, but apparently Mexico is prepared to extradite him now. They've said that.
So why do you think they're cooperating this time around?
That's a very good question. You know, it's kind of above my pay grade.
Right.
You know, because joking aside, that's a question of the State Department, international diplomacy, things like that. Often, and I'm not saying that's the case here, but often it's in reverse for you've helped us with a reciprocal extradition, things like that. But the change of heart could be for any number of reasons, which is given the massive embarrassment over what happened. They might just rid themselves of him and you take care of it. That's possible.
Yeah. Doug, in the Rolling Stone article, Penn writes that Guzman proudly volunteered that I supply more heroin, methamphetamine, cocaine, and marijuana than anybody else in the world.
Yes.
With that said, there are a lot of people who want to get their hands on him. If and when he's extradited, where does he go first in the U.S.?
Well, it's interesting. I was a federal prosecutor in the Eastern District of New York. I read yesterday or this morning that they are seeking his extradition. Many times, Meg, you have multiple requests from multiple districts. They sort that out in Washington, D.C., not surprisingly, at Main Justice. And they turn around and say, well, this case may be the best one to go first, you know, for different strategic reasons. What's the best case, the most likelihood of success, that type of thing. So I don't know exactly which jurisdictions are seeking to prosecute him. I believe it's Chicago and the Eastern District of New York. So it might be in New York, but it's hard to say.
So we know right now he's back in the same prison that he successfully escaped from before.
That's a good point, yes.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, from a legal standpoint, does the U.S. have any influence at all in terms of getting him out of there or move somewhere else?
Getting him out of Mexico?
Getting him out of Mexico, or maybe move from that prison.
Oh, yeah. No. They might very, very well weigh in and say that's not necessarily a good idea. But I have a sneaking suspicion that, you know, he's under pretty serious, you know, surveillance and lockdown and so forth. But they might move him. But the interesting thing will be how much time it will take to extradite him. You know, and then, of course, as you guys teed it up, where's he going to go first?
Yeah, totally. Doug Burns, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.